Hi, welcome to Naresh IT. My name is Satish. In this video, I am going to be discussing what are the main important components required to develop the SOAP web services. Generally, when we are developing the SOAP web services, we need to work with three important components. One is SOAP, second one is visual, third one is UDDI. So whenever we are working with the SOAP web services, mainly we can work with the three important components. One is SOAP, second one is visual, and the third one is UDDI. So in this video I am going to be discussing about what is SOAP, what is visual, and what is UDDI. Okay, SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. SOAP is actually XML based data format. SOAP is a XML based data format. It is just one data format. This data format is using only by SOAP web services. SOAP web services is also called as big web services to exchange or transfer the data from consumer application to producer application and producer application to consumer application. So the SOAP format is only using by the big web services to exchange the data, transfer the data from consumer side application to provider side application and provider side application to consumer side application. For example, here these two applications are there. Here one is I am considered as a consumer application and another one here I am considered as a provider application. Okay, so here to transfer the data from consumer application to provider application and provider application to consumer application, generally we can use here SOAP format data. Okay, so here SOAP is one of the XML format data only. So from consumer to provider request is going in the form of this XML, and from provider to consumer response is also coming in the form of this XML. Okay, here what is the advantage of SOAP? Concentrate, this consumer application, web service consumer application, it is a web service provider application. This web service consumer application, for example, developed with Java or developed with .NET or developed with PHP or developed with any mobile technology like Android, iPhone. Okay, here provider application also developed with Java or .NET or PHP like this. So now try to understand. Here the consumer side application is developed with which technology, there is no guarantee. Provider side the application is developed with which technology, there is no guarantee. Here what is the requirement is there? From one language application to another language application, data transformation is required. So to transfer the data from one language application to another language application, we required a common data format, that is nothing but here XML. The SOAP is one of the XML format. So because of that reason, from web service consumer application to web service provider application to web service consumer application, in general we can transfer the data in the form of SOAP. Okay, SOAP is understanding by any language, any technology. So the main advantage of SOAP is SOAP format is understanding by any language application and any technology application. That means SOAP is language independent and platform independent. Here language independent, platform independent is called as interoperable. So SOAP is actually interoperable data format. The interoperability is nothing but language independent and platform independent. Okay, so in web service applications, from consumer to provider, provider to consumer, request data, response data in general we can transfer in the form of which one? SOAP. Okay. Now try to understand what is the advantage of SOAP. SOAP is interoperable. SOAP is understanding by any language application or any technology application. This is one major advantage of SOAP. SOAP data format is compatible with all transport protocols. It is compatible with all transport protocols. All transport protocols like what? HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, Secure, SMTP, that is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. So actually SOAP is compatible with any transport protocol. So it is supporting to transfer the data with the help of SOAP format. Data is possible to transfer from consumer to provider, provider to consumer with the help of HTTP protocol, with the help of HTTPS protocol, and also by using other transport protocols. Okay, for example, we are transferring the data. For example, we are transferring the SOAP data by using HTTP protocol. HTTP protocol, that means SOAP over HTTP protocol. So whenever we are transferring the SOAP data over HTTP protocol, how it is transferring from consumer to provider, provider to consumer? Now try to understand. For example, here this is one consumer side application and it is what? Provider side application. One is a consumer side application and another one is provider side application. So here whenever we are sending the SOAP request data with the help of which protocol? HTTP protocol. Okay, HTTP protocol first preparing the request format. HTTP protocol first preparing the request format. The request format contain the, in the HTTP protocol, the request format contain the header part and body part. Here the SOAP request binding by the HTTP protocol as part of the body here, and this request format is carrying by the HTTP protocol from client to, means from consumer to provider. So my point is, whenever we are transferring the SOAP with the help of HTTP protocol, the SOAP format data is binding by HTTP protocol in the body part and carrying that request format from consumer to provider. Okay, provider is receiving this request and processing that one and producing what? Provider is producing what? SOAP response. Whatever the SOAP response is producing by provider, okay, that it is passing to HTTP protocol. HTTP protocol will prepare the response format. The response format contain header part and body part. SOAP is binding into the, SOAP response is binding into the body part of this response format and carrying to the client. So client will receive that SOAP. So here when we are sending the SOAP data through HTTP protocol, it is generally transferring with the help of which one? Request format body part and response format body part from consumer to provider, provider to consumer. Okay, So SOAP is compatible with all types of transport protocols and is more compatible with which one? HTTP protocol. And who will prepare? Who will prepare this SOAP format in the application? In general, the application developer is not taking any responsibility to prepare the SOAP format in the application. The application developer not taking any responsibility to prepare the SOAP format. In general, the proxy objects of the application will prepare SOAP format. So your proxy objects, what are the proxy objects are available in general is two proxy objects in general available in the web service applications. One is a stub, another one is a skeleton. Okay, stub is a proxy object. The stub is in generally residing in the consumer application. Stub is always residing in the consumer application. Skeleton is one of the proxy object that is always residing in the provider application. Okay, so in consumer application, the object data is converting into SOAP, and SOAP is converting into object. In consumer application, object data converting into SOAP, SOAP is converting into object. This is doing by which one? In consumer applications. In consumer applications, this is doing by stub. In provider application, okay, the object data is converting into SOAP, and SOAP is converting into object. In provider application also, SOAP required to be converted into object required to be converted into SOAP. This is converting by which one? Skeleton. So in general, application developer not taking any responsibility in the SOAP web services to prepare the SOAP format, to convert the object into SOAP, SOAP into object. Application developer not taking the responsibility. Actually, those responsibilities will be taken care by proxy objects of the application. The proxy objects are nothing but stub and skeleton. Okay. So here the data type conversion, object to SOAP, SOAP to object type conversion responsibility will be taken care by proxy objects of the application. Because of that reason, web service application in generally using some of the proxy objects, consumer side as well as what? Provider side. Okay, we discussed initially one point, SOAP is one of the XML format. So SOAP contain what are the elements? In general, the SOAP contain three elements. One is in general, the SOAP contain the three elements. One is envelope, another one is header, and another one is body. So envelope is a root tag in the SOAP. Envelope is a root tag in the SOAP. Header is an optional element in the SOAP. Body is a mandatory element. Whatever the request we are transferring from consumer to provider, that request data is coming into the body part of this SOAP. Whatever the response is giving by provider application to the consumer, that response is also holding by this body part. So request and response is always holding by this body part in the SOAP. So SOAP is one of the XML. In SOAP, main three important elements are there. One is envelope, header and body. In this envelope is a root tag, header is an optional tag, body is a mandatory tag. Okay. So here these are the three important elements are there in SOAP. But about these three elements we can discuss in the SOAP applications. Okay. So here these are the main important features of which one? SOAP. Okay, what is the disadvantage of SOAP? Actually, SOAP is completely depending on visual document. It is completely depending on visual document. It is one disadvantage. Second disadvantage is SOAP is little bit heavy format. It is a heavy format data comparing to other data formats. So when we are transferring the data in the form of SOAP from consumer to provider, provider to consumer, more bandwidth is required on the network because it is a heavyweight data format. More bandwidth is required to transfer the data from one application to another application. So main two drawbacks are there in SOAP. It is completely depending on visual document and little bit heavyweight compared to other data formats. The most important advantage is SOAP is interoperable, that is language independent and platform independent. Second advantage is SOAP is very secure. Okay, so these are the advantages and disadvantages are there. So next we are going to be discussing about other important components we are using in the SOAP web services. What is that one is visual document and visual. So what is visual? Visual document. Okay, visual stands for web services description language. So visual stands for web services description language. Visual contain what? Actually, visual document contain web service method names, parameter types, return types, throwing exceptions, endpoint address, that is web service address. So this kind of information is maintaining by which one? Visual. Actually, why web service method name, parameter types, return types is maintaining by this visual? Okay, here for example this is one web service application. In this web service application here I have some web service component. Okay, this is a web service component designed by using Java. Now here one client application is there. The client application wants to call this web service, but to call this web service for client, what is required? Method name, method parameters, return types, throwing exceptions. That is the information required for this client. But to know about that information, client not going to be verifying the source code of service provider. The service provider source code is not going to be checking by this client to understand method name, parameters, return types. Even the service provider giving that source code also, that is not understanding by this client, because your service provider is Java but client is a Java, .NET, PHP, any technology, there is no guarantee. So here after designing the web service, the web service provider is explaining the web service information to the client in the form of XML document. The web services information is explaining by the service provider in the form of one XML document. That XML document is nothing but visual. So who will prepare this visual? The visual will preparing by web service provider. Visual is one of the XML document only. In visual, what is specifying by web service provider is method names, parameter types, return types, exception types and endpoint address. Especially this is the information is providing by the web service provider in this XML document. Okay, this XML document is using by this client. The XML document is using by client. By reading that XML document, by using that XML document, client is understanding what is the method name, what are the parameters required, what is the return type, what are the exceptions are throwing, what is the address. Then after the client is going to be calling the web service. So any client not going to be verifying the source code of service provider to understand web service information. Every client is understanding about web service information through WSDL document only. WSDL is one of the XML document. WSDL document is also be interoperable document. That means it is also be language independent, platform independent. Any service provider also providing the WSDL, that is understanding by any client, because that is interoperable. But here my point is how the client will get the WSDL document. Means from where the client will get the WSDL document. Okay, so now here I am coming to the point. This is one service provider application. The service provider is writing the WSDL. After writing the WSDL, service provider going to be publishing the WSDL document, publishing the WSDL document into a XML based registry, That registry is nothing but UDDI. Okay, this is one of the XML based registry. Service provider is publishing all the WSDL documents into the UDDI registry. This registry will maintain all the WSDL documents. So here this is a place, it is a place, UDDI is a place that is used to store WSDL documents. The consumers, service consumers communicating with the UDDI, sending the request to UDDI and getting the WSDL documents. From where? UDDI. So WSDL documents are getting by the service consumer applications. From where? From UDDI registry. So service provider is publishing all the WSDL documents into the UDDI registry, and the service consumers are sending the request to UDDI registry and getting the WSDL document. After getting the WSDL document, the service consumer is understanding what is the web service method, what is the parameter, what is the return type, what are the exceptions are throwing. By understanding, okay, service consumer sending the request to service provider. Service provider is giving the response to service consumer. Your request to data is sending in the form of SOAP. Response data also giving by the service provider in the form of SOAP. So in between service consumer application to service provider, request and response is transferring in the form of SOAP only. Okay, we already discussed SOAP is one of the XML based data format, that is carrying the request data, response data from consumer to provider, provider to consumer. WSDL is also one XML document. The WSDL document is preparing by service provider. What is a web service? And that web service information is providing by service provider in that WSDL document. Consumer directly not getting WSDL document from service provider. Consumer is always getting the WSDL document from a registry, that is UDDI. Okay, so here UDDI stands for Universal Description, Discovery and Integration. Universal Description and Discovery and Integration. UDDI is one of the XML based registry. It is one of the XML based registry. Service providers are publishing means storing the visual documents into a registry that is nothing but UDDI. Okay, SOAP web services application contain three important components. One is SOAP, another one is visual, and another one is UDDI. But in this video, just I given the introduction of SOAP, visual, UDDI. Actually, SOAP contain some specific structure. Visual also contain some specific structure. Some elements are there. In the next applications, we can discuss what are the elements coming in the SOAP request, SOAP response. What are the elements, XML elements are coming in the visual. Actually, what is the visual document structure? Okay, that we can discuss in the next video. Plus SOAP versions, visual versions also we will discuss in the next video. Thank you for watching.